You're tuned in to a one-take
podcast production.
You are listening to
Hey, me, no mind.
with show host Wood.
What's going on, family? Good to be with you today. Thank you for pressing play. This is just going to be an update. I like to do my entertainment. Most of my teams in general stink, so it's always good to be able to flip over to the entertainment side and get into, the other means that I fill my spare time with. So this is going to be all entertainment. I have my guest, Jasmine Doakes, coming back on to discuss, do some recaps on Empire. It's been a couple of weeks since we got together. And then in the meantime, Being Mary Jane has also started up on BET Tuesdays at 10 o'clock. So that's what the meat of this show is for anybody that's looking for sports. I'd appreciate it if you hung around, but I know you have things to do today. So, like I said, I just wanted to get back on top of my entertainment stuff that I keep up with. So, before we get into that, though, there are a couple of sports items for today. Former Eagles, Redskins, Minnesota quarterback. I think that's all he went to. But Donovan McNabb, one of my favorite players in the 2000 decade. One of my favorite guys, 13-year vet. Back in June, he was stopped and arrested for driving while impaired in Phoenix, Arizona. And it's come out this week that he'll be serving an 18-day sentence at the end of November. I think he reports November 30th. It's actually a 90-day sentence, but 18 days will be served. He'll have work release, and then the balance of his sentence will be served out under house arrest. I think that's a bad look for him, obviously, but he has made some appearances since. I think they did a Westbrook, welcomed him back at the Link a few weeks ago, and he showed up. He has come out and said that he doesn't have a drinking problem. He just had a situation on this one night. So I think McNabb may have been dealing with some depression, the way that his career ended so quickly. The way that he went downhill, things kind of spiraled out of control or spiraled downward for him so quickly. From a guy who was one of the faces of the league for a number of years, despite what the shots that Rush Limbaugh may have fired at him. But I just think the way that he was obviously being traded away to a team in your division would affect one's confidence. But I just don't think he's ever regained that bright personality that he once displayed, when he was on top of his game. So I know he's a family guy. I think both of his parents are still alive. They've seemed to be in his life throughout his career. So, hopefully there is no fire there. It's just some smoke. And, he can get this situation, pay his debt to society, so to speak, and move on. Also yesterday, Deadspin released several photos of Greg Hardy, current Dallas Cowboys defensive end. Released several pictures of his domestic violence situation with his former girlfriend, Nicole Holder. Now people are calling for Hardy to be released by Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. This is unfortunate. He had his explosion on the sidelines a couple of weeks ago with the position coach or the special teams coach for the Cowboys, and the rap video that he came out with several weeks earlier. And he's kind of a polarizing guy. A lot of people, or maybe it's just the Dallas Cowboys, respect him for his contributions on the field. The guy did miss 4 games, serving a suspension that related to this domestic violence case. But he served his 4 games, and he's come back, and I don't think he's atop the league just yet, but I think he's leading the Cowboys in sacks. I know you saw that tip interception that he had last week. I don't know. I think Jerry Jones has come out and said, they reviewed all of this. They didn't have the pictures, but they reviewed the situation and kind of knew what they were getting involved with Greg Hardy. They announced last week they had plans to extend him contractually and add a few more years to his stay in Dallas. The team just came out, has been pretty much quiet, but just said, we don't condone domestic violence or domestic abuse. And, I think they've just hitched themselves to Greg Hardy, and we have to see how that plays out. But, he's just not a guy that you can root for. And, I think Joseph Randle had to be sitting here like, wow, you released me, and this guy's bringing in this type of baggage. That's kind of interesting. But, and of course, Ray Rice is still out there. His career is probably all but finished. So yeah, that's Greg Hardy's situation. College football is ramping up for today. Actually, the college football playoffs came out. The rankings came out earlier this week. Number 1 was Clemson, kind of out of the blue. Number 2 was LSU. Les Miles' Tigers. Number 3 was the Ohio State University Buckeyes. And number 4 is Nick Saban's Alabama Crimson Tide. And today's featured game is actually going to help clear up this picture, as the number 2 but number 4 teams, the current playoff seeded teams, LSU and Bama, they have a showdown later on tonight in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Leonard Fournette, definitely must watch. Man, that's a tough game. It's pretty much the centerpiece of my sports weekend. Some NFL games might, garner some attention, some of my attention tomorrow. We'll get into that later. Just a side note, I'm doing another Hoops and Hops show later on tonight with my partner G. So we'll get more into the sports stuff there. But, I don't know. I'm having a hard time even picking a winner of this LSU-Bama game. Bama really can't afford to take a loss. But Fournette is who he is. I don't know if Harris, the quarterback from LSU, I just don't know if I trust him to get it done against one of the nation's best defenses year in and year out. But, Leonard Fournette pulls extra defenders down into that box so that opposing quarterbacks can get some looks, some one-on-one matchups, downfield. So I'm more of a Tigers fan than a Crimson Tide fan, so I'm pulling for LSU. I just don't know if I can go against Bama at home and Saban. So I'm sure he has his team ready. I'll get into my pick in that game later on tonight in the Hoops and Hops show. That probably won't be up before the game airs at 8 o'clock, but, nonetheless, we'll discuss that more in depth over there. Lastly, welterweight WBO champ Tim Bradley takes on Brandon Rios later on tonight at the Thomas & Mack Center in Las Vegas, Nevada. And this is actually Bradley's first fight underneath the tutelage of Teddy Atlas. You might remember him from the back in his heyday, was kind of during Tyson's era. He's worked with a couple, Michael Moore, another heavyweight champ that he had under his wing. But Bradley broke away from Joel Diaz because of defensive concerns. He's taken some punishment in his last couple of fights with Pacquiao, Ruslan Provodnikov. So he brought in Teddy Atlas to kind of tighten up some things and just have a different look. I think it's a good idea by Desert Storm. That's Tim Bradley. Rios, a warrior. He comes forward. He's there to fight. He's there to get hit, to land his punches. He's kind of went on a bit of a winning spree after getting blown out by Pacquiao. I'm going with Bradley here big, by 3 or 4 rounds, maybe even 5 rounds. If Bradley decides to box and just use his advantages in the boxing areas, I just think he has too much class for Rios. Bradley not the biggest puncher, so it could get interesting if fatigue sets in the late rounds, the mid to late rounds. Then maybe Rios can, if he hasn't sustained too much damage through the first, 6 to 8 rounds. Maybe he's able to launch a comeback later in the fight, and maybe Bradley, reverts back to some of the brawling that he's been known for in the last couple of fights. So they could mix it up. But I think if Bradley stays smart, I think he wins this one going away. I just saw before I hit record that the winner of this fight has actually been given 90 days to fight Saddam Ali, who's a guy that I kind of like what I've seen from him his last couple of fights. But we can get into that more. Me and my brother B Wood, we do some boxing coverage on our own shows, and we might touch on this Bradley Rios fight later. But really quickly, before I get into my guest, Jasmine Doakes, some entertainment notes. Spectre, James Bond, it's like the 50th film in that franchise. Spectre opens today. I'm not the biggest Bond fan as far as checking them out at the theater, but I have liked most of the work and most of the value that Daniel Craig has added to the Bond series. I like how it's been kind of more dark versus, the romance, the player, the international player, and all of that type stuff. I like that the characters, Javier Bardem in the last one, or two movies ago. But that's dropping today. Just quickly, what's coming up in the future? We have November 25th is the Creed movie with Michael B. Jordan and Sylvester Stallone. Michael B. Jordan is playing the son or the grandson of Apollo Creed. So that's out there on the horizon. Looks pretty decent. I mean, this, Stallone's handling of the Rocky franchise has been pretty great, and it's good to see that he found a way to continue this on without him being out in the forefront. I mean, obviously, the guy's in his late 60s, and despite the drugs and the workout regimen that he's had to stick to throughout these years, I mean, it's only so much, that an older, aging man can be a boxing character. So it's interesting now that he's actually, stepping into the footsteps of Mick, the late Mick. Burgess Meredith was, don't get me lying on his name. I thought it was Burgess something. But that'll be interesting. TV side, December 3rd, there'll be a live performance of The Wiz. I don't know if those that recall The Wiz with Michael Jackson, Donna Summers, and back in the day. But I'm excited to see a project like this. This one will actually feature Neo, Common, Queen Latifah, I believe, is actually playing The Wiz. David Allen Greer is in there as the Cowardly Lion. I think it's a good look. That's December 3rd. Get back to the silver screen. December 18th is Star Wars The Force Awakens will be hitting theaters, and I'm sure you've heard all of the fallout, the negative fallout on, a black character having a key role. I just don't understand how people, maybe I don't follow the series or the franchise that closely. I do like the movies, but just from watching the trailers that I saw, how could you tell that, I can't even think of the guy's name right now, but John Boyega or something. But how can you tell that he has a principal role in the movie? But anyway, the knuckleheads have to the voices of the few have to mess it up for the masses. And but anyway, I'll probably check that one out to see what J.J. Abrams brings to that. December 12th, everything comes out. All of the big hitters come out. The Hateful Eight from Channing Tatum, Quentin Tarantino's second Western after Django. Interested to see that one. Tarantino's been under fire for speaking out in the Black Lives Matter movement or in speaking out against police brutality. So he's under fire right now, but he's sticking to his guns, saying that he has watched murder happen from where he sits. It looks like murder. So, I applaud him for just speaking out, whether you agree with him or don't. Here's a guy that stands a lot to lose, but he's voicing his opinion and being real about something. When a lot of